Imagine you are sitting in a tiny, totally chaotic flat in East London,
Right.
and the sun isn't even up yet. A family of 9 is just crammed into this really small space, and absolute panic is basically suffocating the room.
Yeah, that tension is palpable.
Because a teenage son has just been abducted off the street by a notorious drug gang,
Wow.
and a ransom of £50,000 is on the line. And then just moments ago, a video arrived on a phone. It shows the hostage being tortured, literally a hot iron pressed firmly against his chest.
Oh my goodness, that's
It
horrifying.
is. His screams are ringing around the tiny walls.
Yeah.
You are surrounded by weeping family members, and the kidnappers are now threatening to send gang members around to spray the entire building with a MAC-10 machine gun.
Just an unimaginable level of stress.
Exactly. So how, in that completely suffocating chaos, do you possibly find calm?
Well, your biological instinct in that exact moment is screaming at you to fight, flee, or freeze. I mean, the sheer terror in that room is contagious.
Right, you'd just be completely overwhelmed.
Oh, absolutely. Neurologically, your brain is treating that environment as an immediate life-ending threat. Maintaining any sort of baseline cognitive function under that pressure sounds, frankly, impossible.
It really does. But, well, welcome to today's deep dive, because finding calm in that exact scenario is what we are going to explore.
And it is such a fascinating topic.
It really is.
Yeah.
We're diving into this incredible book today called Order Out of Chaos, A Kidnapped Negotiator's Guide to Influence and Persuasion.
By Scott Walker, right.
Yes, written by Scott Walker. He's a former police officer and a professional kidnap response consultant who is actually standing in that exact London flat.
Which just gives him such incredible authority on this.
Totally. But our mission today isn't just to look at the thrilling, terrifying world of high-stakes hostage negotiation.
Yeah.
We are going to extract the psychological blueprints that these life-or-death experts use and apply them directly to your life.
Because the mechanics of persuasion are universal.
Exactly. Because whether you are navigating a complex business deal, asking your boss for a raise, or honestly, just trying to get a teenager to clean their room, the mechanics of persuasion remain the exact same.
It's so true.
Okay, let's unpack this. How do we take tactics meant for international kidnapping cartels and apply them to our everyday lives?
Well, it starts by fundamentally shifting our understanding of influence. The core of Walker's material challenges almost everything we naturally assume about persuasion.
Right, because usually when we think of asserting influence, we think of aggression or dominance or control.
Yeah, exactly. We picture the person pounding their fist on the table, being the loudest voice in the room.
The classic alpha move.
Right. But true influence, especially when lives are literally on the line, doesn't come from aggression. It comes from profound empathy and this relentless, almost unnatural ability to manage your own internal state.
Which is so counterintuitive. I think people hear the word empathy and they mistake it for, like, sympathy or softness.
Yes, they think it means giving in.
Exactly. But in this context, it's a strategic tool. Walker states plainly that life is a negotiation. Every single day, you are trying to influence someone to think, feel, or act in a certain way, whether they want to or not.
And when you look at empathy as a tool rather than just a feeling, you realize that every interaction you have is a negotiation.
Whether it's with a kidnapper or just the cashier at the grocery store.
Exactly. But to do it successfully, you really have to internalize the absolute golden rule of negotiation. And I'll warn you, it is a really tough pill to swallow for a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
The
Definitely.
golden rule is it's not about you.
It is not about you. And there is a cautionary tale in the text that illustrates this just perfectly.
Oh, the story with the brothers. That one is intense.
It really is. So a wealthy family's eldest brother gets kidnapped, and the ransom demand is over $10 million.
Just a staggering amount of money.
Right. And the younger brother steps up to be the primary communicator with the kidnappers. And, I mean, you can entirely understand his mindset. He's furious.
Of course he is. His brother has been taken. His family is in sheer agony.
But he lets his ego and his anger completely take the wheel. He refuses to hold back his frustrations on the calls.
Yeah, he makes the interaction about his own emotional release. He's venting his highly justified anger, but in doing so, he breaks that fundamental rule.
He makes it about himself.
Exactly. He let his ego drive the conversation, making it about his need to assert moral superiority over the people on the other end of the line.
And the result of that moral stand, the kidnappers just go completely silent for months.
Wow, just dead air.
Just dead air. There is untold anxiety for the family. It was only when the response team managed to persuade that younger brother to step down and let a calmer family member take over as someone who could park their ego and leave the judgment aside that the hostage was eventually released.
Which just highlights how dangerous ego is in these moments.
It really makes me think of an analogy. Bringing your ego into a negotiation is like bringing a sledgehammer to a puzzle building contest.
Oh, I like that.
Right, because it makes a lot of noise, and it might feel really powerful in the moment to smash things, but you are completely shattering the delicate pieces of human connection you need to actually solve the problem.
That is a perfect way to put it. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, parking your ego does not mean you are being weak.
It doesn't mean you're just rolling over.
No, not at all. It doesn't mean you are letting the kidnapper or, a difficult boss get their way. It means you are temporarily putting aside your need to be right or your need to express your outrage so that you can validate the other person's model of the world.
Their model of the world, even if their model involves kidnapping a human being for $10 million.
Yes, and that is honestly the hardest part to grasp. Validating their model doesn't mean agreeing with it. I mean, Walker never agreed with the cartels.
Obviously not.
But humans have a deep, fundamental psychological need to feel seen, heard, and understood. When you validate someone's model of the world, you short-circuit their defensiveness.
You essentially build a cognitive bridge.
Exactly. You build a cognitive bridge, and that bridge is the only pathway to getting what you want, which, in Walker's case, is the safe return of the hostage.
So we know ego is the enemy of influence. We know we need to build this bridge of empathy. But how do you actually keep that ego in check when the pressure is suffocating?
That is the real challenge.
Because intellectually understanding I need to be calm is very different from actually being calm when your life is on the line.
Completely different.
Let's go back to that tiny flat in London. The physical environment is just pure chaos.
Yeah, and in the kidnap negotiation world, they call the epicenter of this chaos the red center. It's the physical location where the hostage's family or colleagues are receiving the demands and communicating with the perpetrators.
I love how Walker shatters the Hollywood myth of the red center, by the way.
Oh, it's so funny.
Because when I picture it, I imagine wall-to-wall satellite monitors, hackers typing frantically, and like SWAT teams hovering over illuminated digital maps.
Right, the whole movie setup.
But Walker details a time he took a hostage's brother to a hotel suite to set up a red center, and the brother was furious. He looked around the empty room and asked, "Where's all the equipment?"
And Walker's response is just brilliant.
He just pulls 3 things out of his pocket and puts them on a glass coffee table: a pen, a notepad, and a small recording device.
Because technology doesn't resolve kidnappings. Human beings communicating with other human beings resolves kidnappings.
That is such a powerful realization.
Which means the real technology you have to master, the only machinery that actually matters in that room, is your own biology.
So let's look at how that played out in Walker's very first UK kidnapping case.
Yeah.
The one in that crowded, panicking flat with the hot iron torture video.
Right.
Walker admits in the text that he was internally losing it. His heart was pounding so loudly, he genuinely thought the people next to him could hear it.
His nervous system was just completely hijacked.
His stomach was churning, his body was completely rigid, and as a result, he started getting frustrated and forceful with the family because they wouldn't follow his advice. He was losing his grip.
He was letting the external chaos dictate his internal state. And this is where we meet Steve, the veteran Red Center commander on the scene.
Steve is a legend.
He really is. So Steve sees Walker spinning out, and he performs this brilliant, incredibly subtle psychological intervention. He doesn't yell at Walker to calm down.
Which would probably just make it worse.
Exactly. He just gently squeezes Walker's shoulder. It's a tiny physical interruption to break Walker's looping panic pattern.
And then Steve turns to Jackson, the brother of the hostage who has to actually talk to the kidnappers. And Jackson is terrified.
He yawned, terrified.
So Steve takes a thick black marker and writes a single word in massive letters on a piece of paper for Jackson to focus on. Breathe.
It's an absolute masterclass in grounding. Steve even used a physical anchoring technique where he sat next to Jackson while he was on the phone with the kidnappers, positioning himself so his left knee was almost touching Jackson's knee.
Just his knee. That's so subtle.
Right, but that slight physical proximity provides a subconscious physiological anchor for Jackson's nervous system.
Wow.
And once Jackson was breathing and anchored, Steve laid out just 3 simple objectives for the call. Reassure the kidnappers so they relax, get proof of life so the family knows the brother is alive, and establish a call window for the next conversation so they aren't waiting in agonizing suspense.
Okay, I have to push back here. Wait, how is it even humanly possible to focus on a call window when you have a gang threatening to shoot up your building with 1,400 bullets a minute?
It sounds absurd, doesn't it?
It does. Walker explicitly notes they had BMW X5 armed response vehicles sitting right outside the flat because the threat was so severe. When a MAC-10 is literally pointed at your door, doesn't focusing on a notepad require you to essentially shut off your humanity?
It really is the core paradox of the work. But Walker's concept of the internal red center explains the mechanics of this. It is absolutely not about shutting off your humanity or dissociating from reality.
So what is it then?
It is about deliberately managing the physiological cascade of fear. You feel the terror, but you refuse to let it sit in the driver's seat. Walker outlines a highly specific three-step exercise for creating this internal red center when your amygdala is hijacked by a threat.
Let's walk through it. I want to understand this because, honestly, when I get a vaguely passive-aggressive email from someone, my instinct is to just tense up and ignore it, let alone dealing with armed gangs.
Yeah, it applies to emails just as much as kidnappings. So, step 1, acknowledge and accept where you are. Take absolute ownership of the moment.
So don't pretend everything is fine.
Right. Do not deny the reality of the BMW X5s outside, or the reality that you are terrified of an upcoming presentation. Suppressing the fear takes cognitive energy you simply can't afford to waste.
Okay, that makes sense.
But
What's step 2?
Step 2. Locate the physical tension in your body. Literally scan yourself. Is your chest tight? Is your stomach in knots? Are your shoulders creeping up to your ears?
Just pinpointing where the anxiety lives physically.
Exactly. And then step 3, breathe through that sensation. Don't fight it.
Don't fight it.
No, don't try to force the tension away, because clinging to the sensation or actively resisting it only amplifies the nervous system's alarm bells. You step into it, feel where it sits in the tissue, and breathe until the physiological wave dissipates.
So you are essentially creating order inside your own body so you can create order in the room.
Beautifully said, yes.
But if you can manage that physical tension, how do you manage the mental narrative, the stories you're telling yourself while all this is happening? Because my mind would just be playing worst-case scenario movies on a loop.
Well, that is the next level of mastery. The human mind's capacity to withstand profound psychological pressure relies entirely on the narrative we feed it. The source material brings in some astonishing historical case studies of survival to prove that the mind can override the environment if the internal architecture is strong enough.
Oh, the story of U.S. naval pilot Dan Glenn is just unbelievable.
It really is.
He's shot down over North Vietnam, captured, and spends over half of his 2,265 days as a prisoner in the infamous Hanoi Hilton in solitary confinement.
Just brutal conditions.
He is subjected to extreme physical torture. He obviously cannot control a single aspect of his external environment, so he controls the internal one.
Right.
He spends his years in solitary confinement, mentally designing and building his absolute dream house.
Right.
And he didn't just casually picture a house. He built it in his mind down to the finest, most granular detail.
The exact type of wood, the specific nails.
Yes, the way the sunlight would hit the kitchen counter at 8 a.m.
The mechanism at work there is cognitive agency. When you are placed in an environment of total deprivation and helplessness, the brain begins to atrophy. Despair sets in because the mind perceives a total loss of control.
Which is exactly what the captors want.
Exactly. But by meticulously building that house, Glenn was giving his brain a complex, structured problem to solve every single day. He maintained his neural pathways and his sense of agency. His focus overrode his despair.
It's so inspiring.
And years later, after he was released, he actually built that exact house and lived in it.
It's incredible. And he isn't the only one. There's also Terry Waite, who is an envoy for the Church of England, kidnapped in Lebanon.
Oh, yes.
He spent 4 years in absolute, total isolation, chained to a wall for nearly 24 hours a day. And he wrote his entire first book, Taken on Trust, in his head.
With no pen, no paper.
Nothing. He simply decided that his captors could break his body, but they could not possess his mind.
Wow.
Or even consider the maritime piracy crews taken hostage in the Gulf of Guinea.
Mm.
The text notes that the crews who survived with the least psychological damage were the ones who ruthlessly focused only on what they could control.
Planning out family holidays, right?
Exactly. Or mapping the logistics of new businesses they wanted to start once they were free.
They refused to be passive victims of their own thoughts. The text quotes the Stoic philosopher Epictetus. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the view which they take of them.
That is so profound.
It is. The event itself, whether it's solitary confinement or a delayed flight, is objectively neutral until the brain processes it. The meaning we assign to the event dictates our entire emotional reality.
You know, it feels almost absurd to compare an armed cartel to a 3-year-old. But neurologically speaking, the way our bodies react to a perceived threat, like a sudden loss of control, is shockingly similar.
The brain doesn't know the difference.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's an everyday example of this in the text from Dr. Shafali Sabri, a psychologist who writes about parenting. When a toddler throws a massive tantrum, a parent usually views it as a direct challenge to their authority.
They get angry, their heart rate spikes, they feel disrespected.
Right. But Dr. Sabri says you can reframe that tantrum. Instead of a challenge, view it as a cry for help.
Cry for help.
The child is overwhelmed by their own nervous system and is essentially asking for a loving response. Just changing that one mental label shifts your entire physiological state from defensive anger to open compassion.
And that shift dictates whether the negotiation with your toddler is successful or whether it escalates and ends in tears for everyone.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because sometimes we know we need to reframe things. Like, I know I should view a challenge as an opportunity, but I just feel stuck.
You've all been there.
I feel unmotivated or anxious. And Walker brings up this incredible concept, mood follows action.
That is such a key principle.
We always think we need to feel motivated before we do something. Like, I'll go to the gym when I feel energized. I'll start that massive work project when I feel inspired.
But the inspiration rarely comes first.
Exactly. You don't wait for the motivation. You start the action, even if it's just putting on your running shoes or typing a single sentence, and the mood literally catches up to the action.
What's fascinating here is the underlying neuroscience, which the text connects to Dr. Andrew Huberman's concept of the architecture of a feeling.
Oh, this part blew my mind.
Huberman explains that our emotions aren't just random, mysterious clouds that float into our brains. They are constructed by our autonomic nervous system based on 3 highly specific variables.
Right, so what's the first one?
1, alertness. Where is your physical energy on the scale from sleepy calm to high alert panic? 2, valence.
Okay, let's unpack valence, because that's a bit of a technical term. What does that actually mean in the moment?
Think of valence as the emotional coloring or the specific charge your brain attaches to a physical sensation. A high heart rate could have a positive valence, which we call excitement, or a negative valence, which we call anxiety.
Oh, I see.
It's how your brain categorizes the physical feeling as either good or bad. And finally, the third variable is focus. Is your attention focused internally, like ruminating on your own rapid heartbeat, or externally, like staring intently at a spreadsheet?
So if you change your action, you literally disrupt that architecture.
It's exactly.
If you are sitting on the couch dreading a workout, your alertness is low, your valence is negative, and your focus is internal. But just by standing up and putting on your shoes, you raise your physical alertness, shift your focus to the external environment, and literally reconstruct the emotion you are feeling.
The mechanism is entirely biological, and, this extends to how we visualize our actions, too. The brain's neural pathways are like water carving a canyon.
Oh, I love that imagery.
Visualizing a successful action is literally running water down that same path, deepening the groove so the water flows naturally when you finally step into the real situation.
Because the brain actually struggles to differentiate between a vividly imagined event and a real physical experience.
Precisely. The text cites a famous University of Chicago study on basketball free throws. They split people into 3 groups.
Right.
One group practiced physical free throws for an hour every day. Another group never touched a basketball but spent an hour deeply visualizing making free throws. The third group did nothing.
The results of this study blew my mind. The group that physically practiced improved their accuracy by 24%.
Which you would expect.
Right. But the group that only visualized, who never even touched a physical ball, improved by 23%.
Just 1% difference. It's staggering.
By feeding their brain the narrative of success, their nervous system literally rewired itself to execute that success.
Which is exactly why Walker visualizes every single stage of a ransom drop before it happens. He builds the neural pathways of calm and certainty before the chaos even begins.
That makes total sense.
If you lack belief and tell yourself you will fail, you take minimal action, you get poor results, and you validate your negative story. But if you visualize success, you take determined action, you get better results, and you validate an empowering story. You choose the lens.
It all comes down to the architecture we build in our minds.
Yeah.
Let's pull all of this together.
Let's do it.
We've gone from a terrifying flat in London with an armed gang to the psychological survival of solitary confinement, right down to the nuances of neuroplasticity. But the journey here is incredibly cohesive. You are very likely never going to face an international kidnapping cartel.
Hopefully not.
Right. But tomorrow, you will face hijackings of your time, hijackings of your peace, and hijackings of your focus.
Daily life is full of minor crises that trigger our nervous systems. We get taken hostage by an aggressive email from a boss, by a partner's passive-aggressive comment, or by our own spiraling internal anxieties about the future.
The biological reaction is exactly the same.
It is.
But you can apply the exact mindset of a high-stakes negotiator to those moments. First, you park your ego at the door. You realize it is not about you, and you use empathy as a tool to validate their model of the world.
So crucial.
Second, you find your internal red center. You accept the reality of the situation, locate the physical tension in your chest or your stomach, and you breathe directly into it rather than fighting it.
And third, you control the emotional narrative. You reframe the threat into an opportunity, and you take action so your mood follows.
When you combine those three elements, you aren't just reacting to the world around you anymore. You are actively shaping it. You transform the way you interact with your colleagues, your children, and most importantly, the way you interact with yourself.
Yes.
I want to challenge you, the listener, to try this today. The very next time someone frustrates you, maybe someone cuts you off in traffic, or a coworker drops the ball on a project, try the Dr. Tabari framing.
View it as a cry for help.
Look at their behavior not as a personal attack on your ego, but as a cry for help that requires a loving response. Notice how it instantly diffuses your own biological anger. Just locate where that tension is sitting in your body and take one deep breath into it.
It's a game changer.
So what does this all mean? It means that the quality of your life is in direct proportion to the quality of your emotions, and the architecture of your emotions is entirely within your control.
It's an incredibly empowering realization. You are no longer at the mercy of external events or the chaos of other people. You become the architect of your own internal experience.
We'll leave you with this one final, lingering thought to mull over. The source material emphasizes that we are always negotiating, even when we aren't saying a single word.
We are always communicating.
You are constantly communicating your boundaries, your confidence, and your emotional state through your posture, your facial expressions, and even your silence. So take a moment right now. Take a look at your resting state today, how you are sitting or standing as you listen to this. Ask yourself, what is my body language negotiating for in this exact moment?